The pleasure beneath all of these happenings in the world worlding does feel more and more permanent. But even that isn't a getting, and it's not got through getting. There is nothing to get, but there is everything to give. And we are back with another reflection on the Daily Vedantic. Recording today's episode has been quite the journey. Quite the... the word travel comes from the same root as travesty. Traverse. Travesty. It's always been seen as, journey has always been seen as really difficult. It's kind of only a modern thing that travel is seen as this like business class type of like first class ideal to shoot for. It's usually just been a huge pain in the ass. Today, getting this episode done and getting all of the moving pieces, the camera wasn't quite working. The computer was dying on me. Even getting into the studio here was delayed, waiting for just a few different repair things to get done. And it was so nice to have this philosophy to lean on in the midst of also having to record it before jumping into dad duty with the little kiddos. Like every obstacle challenge, it's so nice to have this philosophy to fall into. The concept, the principle that I reflected on during like calling, FaceTiming my producer Nick, being like, dude, I don't understand why the camera isn't working, is that there is nothing to get. There is nothing to get. I've recorded an episode before of Nothing Happens, and that's something that Swami will say pretty often when people come in and say, I have this problem and I'm thinking about doing this. And he said, yeah, go do that. Yeah, but then it has this other thing. If I do that, then this or some other secondary thing will happen. And he said, well, then don't do it. And say, but I have to do something. And he'll say, do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Nothing happens. That's on my to-do list, at the top of my to-do list. It's two things that never go away on my Apple reminders to-do list. Everything goes below it. First is God, family, community, body, then work. So in that order, my to-do list should go into God, family, community, body. 2 hours on the body each day, whether it's walking 30 minutes to the office and walking back, whether it's a jog, a workout, the gym, but aiming for 2 hours of the body, that's more important than the work task that might seem acutely important that Thursday. But if I don't take care of those other things, including, which is so strange, even for me to think about putting body before work when my entire 20s was work above everything else on that list. Now it's almost like the strangest one is that body's above whatever to-do lists I have for the different companies that I help run. But ahead of that is community. Ahead of that is my local family, our household, our 3 little girls, extended family, parents, brothers. And ahead of that is God. My to-do list, while on the topic for God, every day is 4:30 a.m. Because that's another phrase that Swami will say, that people will say at the ashram quite often, that is that nothing really matters outside of what you do between the hours of 4 to 6 a.m. A reflection time. But just below that, God, family, community, body, then work. As just a reminder of the hierarchy. Just below that is nothing happens. Get all my to-do list items done. Nothing happens. Some startup investment does really well. Nothing really happens. Some work milestone is hit. Nothing really happens. Selling a company. Nothing really happened on the other side of that. I think I said this in the episode 2 days ago or so of that old adage that after 6 weeks, your raise just becomes your salary. We adjust. The camera just went out while recording that. So beautiful. Such a beautiful articulation of even when you think you got everything dialed in, the world's going to world on you. And even when You knock it out, figure out some creative solution to finish an episode. Well, nothing's really going to happen on the other side. And this is also embodied in the phrase within this philosophy of there's nothing to get. Nothing outside of ourselves has any permanent value. Nail an episode of this little nonprofit project of the Daily Vedantic. You have the healthy birth of third child. There's nothing to get. There is nothing to get in this impermanent world. And whatever we think we have in our grasp for a nanosecond will be gone. There's nothing to get. It is sobering because it turns us from the outward pursuit of all of the things we want to get. But if we cultivate a love of the inner work, like I said recently, not trying to push back the waves, but learning to surf, cultivate a love of learning to surf, going with the waves, the challenges, the undulations of the world whirling on us. If we cultivate that love, that love of the impermanence of everything, not only do we have a greater appreciation for those things, but we really do the work that matters, that becomes near permanent. The truth is the only thing that's permanent, that which is the ground of being, the divine. But there is an incremental path to getting there. And as we do that, you maintain a sense of peace for much longer than you ever did before. Sense of a pleasure in the discomfort that you would have done anything to try to avoid in a younger version of you. We start to say there's nothing to get out there. Even if I got those things, it wouldn't be the state inside that I'm really chasing. And the state of being that I'm chasing has nothing to do with this mode of having, of getting these things and positioning them around me. There's nothing to get. It's such a helpful phrase that dials down our expectations, wildly misguided expectations of what we're pursuing, dials down our stress over them, our agitation if it's not going the direction we want it to, if it breaks right in front of us, like this camera battery just did when it died while filming. The pleasure beneath all of these happenings and the world whirling does feel more and more permanent. But even that isn't a getting. And it's not got through getting. There is nothing to get, but there is everything to give. The sobering view that there's nothing to get is countered by the bliss of realizing, wow, you can give everything. I have all of this to give. I love how energizing it is to give. And whoa, I have so much time, energy, myself, my skills, my insight to give. And you can give most prudently when you know how much insight you still need to develop, how much of that skill you still need to master. That work on ourselves allows us to give optimally. In fact, that is the only way that we truly can help others is the work we do on ourselves. And that's said in this podcast every once in a while, that the most important work we do is the work we do on ourselves. That's the Bhagavad Gita. That is Vedanta when it comes to even how to give. But it's still, that is the foreground to this observation and awareness in the background that get everything right. You nail that little episode on a tiny project that one in 10,000 even find interesting, and and or you sell that company for $100 million. As my friend Justin Kahn, when he sold Twitch, they sold for almost $1 billion. And 3 months later, he couldn't get out of bed for 4 days. He's public about this. Couldn't get out of bed for 4 days because he was so depressed. Enough of life, enough of trying, enough of attempting to get. Whether it's selling a company for $1 billion or writing that email just perfect and sending it on. It's very liberating. It's freeing to realize there's nothing to get. And nothing happens. Far more freeing than it is, first blush, sobering. In fact, maybe the most freeing when it comes to the work we do. Maybe the most freeing thing we could ever hear is that we'll do the work, but there is nothing to get. And instead of shutting us down, it actually unlocks near infinite energy within us. Especially when you combine it with, if you think things are going to go south, there's a chance that some terrible outcome might happen. Don't worry, nothing really happens. God, that's like the trapeze artist just knows I can't get hurt. It unlocks quite the experimentation, the exploration, and ultimately the capability. That's today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.